Chapter 10. Looking into the past. Let's learn history, its importance, history, time frames, dates in history, geography and history, sources of history. History, its importance. History is about events that occurred in the past. But why study about the past? The study of the past is important to understand the present, as present is the result of the events, acts, and decisions taken in the past. We need to study history for the following reasons: to answer the questions of why we are where we are, in order to learn about the past and to learn from the past. It helps us understand the world in the past. It enables us to understand the changes and events that shaped our today's world. It helps us understand different cultures and their evolution through time. It also brings together different cultures which share the same roots in history. It tells us about the mistakes made by our ancestors and enables us to decide not to repeat those mistakes. History time frames. History is divided into three time periods: prehistory, proto-history, and history. Prehistory. The prehistoric period is the time much before writing got invented. Hence, there are no written records for this period. So, to understand prehistory, archaeologists dig deep into the ground and dig out the remaining evidences of the past. These physical remains such as pots, jewelry, tools, coins, bones, etc. help them to know about the past. Proto-history. Proto-history refers to a period between prehistory and history, for which we have very few written records. So, archaeological sources are the main sources of information of this period. An example of this period is the Indus Valley Civilization. Brain tickler. What is the meaning of circa? History. History is the period for which written evidences are available. It is based on different types of evidence like written records, inscriptions on buildings and rocks, dated coins, copper plates, writings on palm leaves, and the barks of birch trees. Therefore, we can say with greater amount of surety that the events in the course of history occurred the way we understand them. Dates in history. Another way of describing history is by mentioning the years by BCE and CE. BCE stands for Before Common Era and CE stands for Common Era, the birth of Jesus Christ. Year 0 divides the time frame into events that occurred before or after this year. The events that occurred before this year are termed as BCE and those that occurred after this year are termed as CE. Thus, 1980 BCE refers to the year that took place 1980 years before the birth of Christ, while 1980 CE refers to the year that occurred 1980 years after the birth of Christ. Earlier, BC was used to mention the time period before Christ and in place of CE, that is Common Era. AD was used, which was the short form of Anno Domini, which in common parlance referred to the period after Christ's departure. If you want to find out the time period between two dates, that is in BCE or CE, subtract the smaller date from the bigger one. For example, 600 BCE to 200 BCE means a period of 400 years. Similarly, CE 100 to CE 500 also means a period of 400 years. To calculate the time period between two dates, that is, when one date is in BCE and the other is in CE, just add the two dates. For example, 300 BCE to 200 CE means a period of 500 years. Geography and history. Landforms play an important role in various manifestations of life, like food, dress, customs, lifestyle, climate, vegetation, wildlife, and so on. When we read history in conjunction with geographical situation, it helps us to understand the perspective better. For instance, there are high mountains in the north which acted as natural barriers and prevented frequent invasions. Many valleys and passes on the mountains served as routes of contact since ancient times. Thus, landforms have played a role in shaping our history. Similarly, the fertile delta formed by the Indus, Ganga, Yamuna and Brahmaputra were the areas where people settled first. This was because the river provided sufficient water for all their needs. The land near the river was very fertile. The river served as a means of transport. It has been noticed that places with favorable environment led to the development of civilization, and their easy accessibility led to the intermixing of various cultures. And for hive, the word history comes from the Greek word historia, which means learning by investigating. Sources of history. We learn from the remains of the things that people have left behind at a particular time to know about that period. Archaeologists and historians study these remains and tell us what might have happened in the past. The sources through which we know about the past can be divided into two types: archaeological and literary sources. Infohive, the study of inscriptions on rocks, metal plates, etc. is called epigraphy. Archaeological sources. Archaeological sources are direct and clear evidences. They cannot be changed or altered by us. They are of four types: monuments, inscriptions, artifacts, and coins. Monuments. Buildings of historical importance are called monuments. They inform us about the period which they belong to. They tell us about the social life, religious beliefs, the culture and the knowledge of science of the people of the period in which the monuments were built. Temples, forts, palaces, stupas, and monasteries are examples of this. Inscriptions. Written records engraved on stones, rocks, cave walls, metal pillars, walls of temples and palaces, and on clay and copper tablets and plates are called inscriptions. Many inscriptions have been found carved on stone, copper plates, etc. The rock edicts of Ashoka tell us about the principles of his dharma and the extent of his empire. The inscriptions in Sachi tell us about the rule of Chandragupta Vikramaditya. The pillar inscriptions at Allahabad tell us about the conquests of Samudragupta. These inscriptions also help us to know the personal qualities of a ruler, important dates, works of art, and relation between different places and kingdom. Artifacts. The objects that humans made in the past: pottery, tools, ornaments, metal objects, jewelry, and weapons are called artifacts. They are found by the archaeologists in the course of excavations. They tell us about the cultural life of the people. Coins. During excavations, often a large number of coins are unearthed. These coins are made of gold, silver, copper, and other metals. Many of them are dated and tell about different periods and rulers. Coins tell us about more than we would know otherwise. For example, a coin on Samudragupta depicts him with a veena, which shows his love for music. Literary sources. Handwritten records of the past in the form of books are called manuscripts. These were usually written on palm leaves and the barks of birch trees. Due to their fragile nature, many manuscripts have been destroyed. Those that have survived have helped us to know more about the past. Literary sources may be divided into two types: religious and secular. Religious literature. Writing which deal with religion are called religious literature. Books that are based on religious themes include the four Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. from Hinduism, the Tripitakas, Jatakas, etc. from Buddhism, the Angas from Jainism, etc. Secular literature. Writings which are not religious are called secular literature. These include poetry, stories, plays, travel accounts, biographies, etc. The number of this type of books is limited, but they are very fine works of writing and give us information about the prevailing times. The Arthashastra by Kautilya, the Indica by Megasthenes, the plays and poems of Kalidasa, the accounts of Fa Hien and Huan Sang, and the Sangam literature are some examples of secular literature written during the ancient period. Brain tickler. What are the various sources from where we collect material to study history? Recap. The present cannot be understood without understanding the past, so we study history. History is divided into three time periods: prehistory, proto-history, and history. BC stands for Before Common Era and CE stands for Common Era. The fertile delta formed by the Indus, Ganga, Yamuna and Brahmaputra were the areas where people settled first. The sources through which we know about the past can be divided into two types: archaeological and literary sources. Life skills.
Mother, I want to be an archaeologist one day. Why, Nana? So I can play in mud all day. Our teacher told us that archaeologists dig out a lot of interesting stuff. Nana, archaeology is a very serious profession. It helps us to know about our past and origin better. The information obtained after studying artifacts can change our views about our history. So, you must not take it as an easy job.